am Yahweh your Elohim, and you shall set yourselves apart. See, he tells you you are to be set apart, but this is something you do yourself. In other words, you choose to behave differently, recognizing that that's what a set apart person does. It's not like he, sprinkles fairy dust on you and somehow you glow different and he made you set apart. He chose you to be set apart, but you must set yourself apart. A mikra is something that's called out, a public meeting or rehearsal. So there's a lot of things that kind of tie us back to wedding, engagement, rehearsals. So they're all pointing to that wedding feast ultimately. They're pointing to the millennium and then to the kingdom of forever, the spending time together. And it's an intimate time because the words are linked to things like an engagement, wedding type things, very intimate. And so our bridegroom wants to meet with us on these days. We're the bride. He wants to meet with us on these days. And so, if I was dating my wife before we got married, if I was dating her and she told me, look, I'm only available to go out on this day, that would be the day I would make sure to be available. We should be showing him how excited we are about all of his events. That means that number one, you know when they are and you've blocked them out on your calendar. Set apart people, do set apart things in set apart ways. Okay, so then you are going to make sure you know when the next event is that Yahweh has scheduled in Leviticus 23. You don't get to Friday night, sundown, and think, oh, I didn't get ready for Sabbath. You should know how to get ready for it every week. You don't think, oh, next week is Passover. Oops, I'm not ready for that. You should be anticipating it now. So one of the things that's a sign of being set apart is guarding the Shabbats. And by the way, when it gives Shabbats plural, it's not just talking about the 52 Saturdays. It's talking about the annual Sabbaths and the weekly Sabbaths, like all of the Shabbats. Okay? Otherwise, we just say guard the Shabbat, because the Shabbat comes every week. When he says plural, because it's not like you would ever just guard Saturday and then skip the next Saturday and then do 2 or 3 Saturdays in a row and then skip and do 3 more. You know what I'm saying? That's not the way we go. He wants to know that you're including the annual ones, the ones that show up every year but can be on a different day. First day of unleavened bread, last day, right? Shavuot, etc., right? Those 7 annual Shabbats. Set apart people work. Set apart people don't buy into Christianity's garbage about it. The law's all been done away with, and that works are bad, and Yeshua did everything for you, and you don't have to do anything. No, set apart people understand you were put here to work, to produce. Even the New Testament tells you to produce fruit. Fruit is what comes out after production. I couldn't think of the right word I wanted to look at. Okay, when you do something, it produces something we call fruit. Doing nothing produces nothing. And so we're put here to be productive fruit generators. You're out there to make and produce fruit. So don't buy into all that garbage and that nonsense. You need to get off your you-know-what and go out there and produce. So you got all these people in mainstream Christianity claiming to be his people, but they don't have the sign. You can't be if you don't have the sign. He says, between me and the children of Israel is a sign forever. They'll say, well, that was Israel. We're the church now. There's not a single verse that switches between the two. There's no verse that says, oh, I'm sorry, Israel, you blew it. It's the church now. As a matter of fact, Paul says the opposite. It says, you're grafted into them. They're not grafted into you. Okay? Now, sure, they blew it in some ways, but they never lost their place. Paul says, of the Jew first. Don't be disrespectful. Yes, they have their issues and their problems, etc., but don't disrespect their position. You're getting in because of what he scattered them to do, and then to get them back to go do what he promised to do. Everybody gets to hear the message. All of you get bent into a pretzel about this, that. That's funny. I get people that want me to send them a report to know what I spent all the money on. It's none of your darn business. It really isn't. Because it says it's mine. Oh, but you're not a priest. Well, the same thing was with Melchizedek. Melchizedek wasn't Levitical. Melchizedek wasn't running a temple service. And the tithes were given to him. It's the first mention of tithing was given to Melchizedek. So it's a role that's played by those that are standing before Yahweh and guiding and leading and teaching and instructing the people. Now, having said all that, you're not giving it to anybody in the flesh. This is your obligation between you and the Creator. But once you give it, and you give it to a person, you put it in some person's box, an offering box or whatever, or you hit a donation button, that's theirs. The seed are here to remind you to keep the commandments because you already have struggled enough with this stuff. Yahweh tells you in Deuteronomy in the V'ahavta that you're supposed to love him with all your heart, might, and being, and that you're supposed to have him as frontlets, that all the stuff that you're supposed to have as frontlets before your eyes and bind it on your hands, etc. And then he gives you something to remind you. He gives you strings that you put on your clothing that'll remind you. And by the way, you can't tie these any way you want. They get tied in, and they are the colors that are set apart. White with one blue, period. Not red, green, yellow, orange, and whatever rainbow stuff you want to do. Oh, but it doesn't say that. Yes, it does. Because it says, take one and make it blue. It doesn't say what to do with the other ones. Yes, it says to do nothing with them. It says, make one blue, leave the other ones alone. So they would have taken the whitest wool that they could find and make that into string and dyed one blue. How many times you see that on the preacher on the TV saying, I got a word from the Lord, when he hadn't said any of that. But they do. They claim that all the time. All you ever hear from me is what he said because I read it to you, and it says, thus said Yahweh. So I'm pretty sure, actually I've got complete confidence that's what he said, because it says that's what he said. I'm not going to walk in here and tell you he told me something that isn't right here. That's what he said. That's what I'm going to read to you and say, that's what he said. So if I'm going to tell you the tithes and offerings belong to me because he said when you give it to the priest, it's his. Because he said it. Not because he told me. He wrote it down. He told Moses to write it down. So we have it. Here we're going to see the endurance of the set-apart ones. We're going to see who is actually going to hold on. We're going to see at what level their belief really is. I'm only saying all of this so that you stop thinking that somehow Christianity's whatever they sold you about make your altar call and everything's going to come like butterflies and roses out of your belly button is nonsense. The set-apart ones are going to go through the hardest tests and trials so he can know what you're made out of. So when life is really hard, say, oh, good, it's a test. I can show him my endurance and my belief. Go listen to the teaching, endure and receive the crown of life. Don't kid yourself. This is in your Bible. This is in Revelation. All you guys love to go into Revelation. The set-apart ones are going to go through all of this because he wants to see which ones of you are going to make it through.